Okay, moving on to our next panel, the future of XR in workforce training. I know we've had, it's always a strong theme about training here, so I'd like to welcome Amir from PICO, Director of Enterprise, onto the stage, and he will introduce his panel.
Thank you. All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate everyone hanging out, listening to our talk here. I heard this was the most highly anticipated panel in the 12:20 hour, so that's at least what I heard. So good to know. Thanks everyone for hanging out. So yeah, let me take a minute, just quickly introduce myself. We did a panel like this about a month ago, and I realized halfway through the panel that I'd never even told anyone who I am or what my role was, and really was just kind of focused on our partners here. So my name is Amir Khorram. I lead the enterprise business for PICO in North America. We've got a phenomenal team that's here up in our booth and joining us here in the chairs recording me right now. And really what this panel does, guys, is it kind of continues to emphasize the point that PICO is very much a partner-first company. If you come to our booth, you'll actually see that we've got demos and displays and content and amazing experiences from our partners. Could have very easily just grabbed this speaking opportunity and stood up here for 20 minutes and told you about how great PICO is and talked about us only. But that's not how we operate. Really, we're about going to markets, going to verticals, and succeeding with our partners. Amazing content creators, amazing innovators, and that's why we're here today. So I want to take a minute here and introduce everybody, let them tell you who they are, and then we'll go into some interesting topics, some questions, some conversations. Maybe we'll even leave some time for some Q&A at the end. So why don't we start here? We've got Scott Stachiw. Why don't you please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Amir. So Scott Stachiw, I oversee XR design and development at Roundtable Learning. We are a custom solutions provider for Fortune 500 organizations and our broad spectrum of learning solutions from e-learning and development, instructional-led training, but my department in particular, looking at how immersive learning can help excel the training for our partners.
Appreciate it, Scott. Glad to have you. Matt Tullis?
Yeah, my name is Matt Tullis. I'm the Vice President of XR at Ultraleap. We focus on hand tracking as well as mid-air haptics. Many of you probably know of Leap Motion. We are the two, Ultra Haptics and Leap Motion combined in 2019. And I look after all of our go-to-market and augmented reality and virtual reality.
Thank you, Matt. Shawn Smith?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Amir. Thanks for having us on the panel here. Shawn Smith, Chief Operating Officer for a company called LogicalDox. As you'll denote, LogicalDox doesn't have XR, VR, and any R in it. So our company's evolved very differently into this space. We were in the document management side and then evolved into membership management, especially with the skilled trades and so on. And then we're asked from a use case to get into the immersive tech space, so that's why we're here today. We build workforce management and workforce performance solutions, and we're based out of Toronto.
Thank you, Shawn. And lastly, Juan Sotelo.
And thank you for having me on the panel, PICO and Amir. So Juan Sotelo, CEO, co-founder of CyberDyme. We're an enterprise platform for sales, marketing, and training. Bit of my background, probably why I'm on the panel for this, is I worked at BEA and Oracle University for 7 years, really understood corporate training, was a former teacher myself. So we started integrating the VR technology and seeing the advancements and improvement of knowledge transfer taking place. And that's how we dealt from sales and marketing and transitioned into training.
Appreciate that. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time out to be up here with us. So let's jump into some questions. I'm going to go in no particular order, but Shawn, I'm going to start with you. So, you know, as an industry, and certainly us as a company and partners here, we've been discussing enterprise training quite a bit. So over the last few years, it's becoming more and more of a priority in the enterprise. But heading into next year, you know, what are you guys seeing as key problems, needs, or even solutions that are standing out to you the most, Shawn?
I could sit here and talk for 20 minutes about what we're getting feedback from the marketplace, but there's two areas of focus to begin with. We deal a lot with the skilled trades community. And the biggest issue the skilled trades are having today is getting apprentices into the trades. So they've actually tasked us with using technology, because when you're trying to bring an 18-year-old into the electrical worker or an iron worker, and so on. Putting them in a classroom and sitting there, having them watch PowerPoint and being non-interactive at all just doesn't work. So technology, such as VR, they're very used to. So we're using that to indoctrinate them into, so in other words, awareness, initial attraction into the space, and then evolving it into the training side for there. So that's one. Two is the clients that we're working with right now are really understanding that the learner experience has to change. So again, the old way of teaching, as you talked about being a teacher and understanding all those dynamics, it doesn't work. So they're trying to evolve that to the next level. Learning experience means now you're customizing and personalizing content that they engage in, and then want to take that forward and be able to perform safely in the field or more effectively in the field. So those are two of the main elements or triggers that we're working with today.
Appreciate that. Scott, what about you? Any thoughts on this?
I don't know if anyone else had this problem or if they're dressing up for Halloween, but I, for one, had forgotten to purchase my costume. So Sunday I ordered a sword, a wig, a whole outfit. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to be. I'm just going to let you think about it. No, not for the panel. But it was delivered in one day, right? I ordered it, and it's there the next day for me. My wife buys all sorts of stuff. My kids need things. I'm sure everyone in this room probably has the same issue. And what I've noticed, one of our biggest partners, of course, being Amazon, also Walmart, the entire supply chain field, the distribution, the logistics, every person that's required to make that work flawlessly so I can get my sword the next day from my costume has to work well. And if you ever have the opportunity to go to like a fulfillment center and look at the workforce that has to be trained quickly, efficiently, but more importantly, safely, there is a huge need for implementing XR into that training regimen. Because right now they're being trained as a group of 10 people huddled around a single person who's yelling in a loud warehouse trying to explain what they're supposed to do. There's language barriers, there's understanding the process, and then there's motion, the body motion. Like if I have to grab a package and rotate my body to place it on the other side, I should be moving my feet. But some people just rotate their hips, and over time they get back problems. So there's a lot of need for incorporating XR within that workforce to prepare them for the job they need to do and make sure I get my sword.
We'll need to see photos of this Halloween costume. Juan, what about you? So, I mean, you're coming at this from a very unique industry, very unique perspective. What are you seeing as maybe either key needs or key opportunities ahead?
Well, the pandemic changed everything.
Yeah.
Seismic shift. And one of our verticals, travel and tourism, in particular hospitality, Marriott's one of our clients. We have departments that vary between 24 to 60% of net new hires in the past year. That's a CEO problem, right? And service scores are going down, right? Revenue may be going up, but they know revenue is going to go down because of that. And so what I see from that, in addition, is that 1/3 are new to the industry. So they're not, coming from different properties. So what do you do about that, right? And what I see as a trend in the future, or maybe I'm trying to launch here, is recurring VR micro training. And I think that there is a shift not only in how you learn, but the frequency in VR being the optimal way to learn. So when I think of micro training, I think of my 49ers that lost on Monday Night Football, and I had my beer, and I was sad. And I think of Coach Shanahan telling the team, okay, team, see you Sunday. We're not going to train. We already did the training during spring training. We're done, right? And that's how you operate. I mean, how many of you got trained in the last 1 to 2 weeks? I think you need to have a weekly recurring VR micro training strategy, and we're seeing that being adopted. And that, to me, is transformative. And when I also look at how people learn, there is a 4x focus that is better in VR training compared to e-learning and 1.5x compared to classroom training. And so in our industry, e-learning is optimal. Can't ship everybody around to get in classroom training. So VR micro training is really, I think, transformative in solving the problem.
That's great, thank you. So Matt, for you, I kind of want to blend this question maybe with the next one I have coming, but obviously 2024 needs, 2024 priorities, but also how does that tie into adoption and scale of VR? You guys are coming at it from a unique perspective. You've got some really innovative tech that works with our headset. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think many of us here have all agreed that VR training is here and now. It's not next year. And what that means is we're going from pilots to deployments. And that creates operational challenges. That's the part I would say that's like the biggest thing I see is operational. And for us, we help out in that way in that we remove the need for controllers. So if you're trying to do VR training at scale, controllers need to be charged. If you're in any of these booths, you'll see like 8 pairs of controllers for 8 headsets and like which one goes with which. So our belief is that we really can make that streamlined by adding hand tracking, and that really helps on the operational aspect. We reduce the need for charging controllers at all, or batteries or pairing. And so that's kind of like, I think operations, again, it's the here and the now. We all want to see these big deployments. And then to the next one is like on the scale, going from millions of dollars to billions of dollars. It's all about use cases. There's one thing to like do VR training where, okay, you're just going to watch a video and you put someone in a VR headset and then maybe you 3D video. It's another thing to onboard someone that's getting ready to take a cruise ship or a tourism and skilled trades or someone in the warehouse. There's all these different use cases that require different needs from your hands. Some want to build muscle memory. They want to use hand tracking in certain ways so that you're building repetition. We've worked with Lufthansa to do flight attendant training. You want to close the overhead bins, put the tray tables up, lock them. You're building muscle memory that hand tracking adds a lot to. And because we're focused and specializing in hand tracking, we're able to, we have machine learning workflows that we've developed over a decade now, designed to go after not only different headsets, but different use cases. And so what we're seeing now in our enterprise engagements is, hey, we have this specific object that we want in our VR training. That makes it really hard to do hand tracking because it's occluded and things like that. Well, we have the ability to actually train models custom for those use cases. And so we're trying to help the industry scale by delivering great hand tracking for any use case, because we think that, again, hand tracking should be to VR what the touchscreen was to mobile phones. It's going to make it accessible to 80-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and that's how we get to like the bigger numbers, is making this industry accessible to everybody.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. Let's see. So back to you, Scott. So as far as, are there any types of like research studies, data that you guys point to, right? I mean, you're going to enterprise organizations who are maybe spending hundreds of thousands, sometimes tens of millions of dollars on training and explaining to them, here's how moving this into VR can actually save you money, become more analytical, become safer. Is there any kind of key data points that you guys typically lean on to get that point home?
There's always a general research that's out there that everyone has access to, the PwCs, the white papers that are available. For us, it's more about educating on what a key type of case study that we've already done can prove for their needs. Right. And it kind of even goes hand in hand with what the adoption looks like. And providing adoption for a company, it comes down to education. Yeah. If you've ever bought a consumer headset, what's the first thing you get? You get videos that teach you how to use VR. But in the enterprise solutions area, you're getting a kiosk mode headset that just sends you right into the training. And so we have a workforce that doesn't fully educate it on how to use VR as a tool, as well as trainers that don't know how to use the VR as a tool. So showing them how we've done a specific type of project in the past for a similar situation to drive behavioral change is really important in helping them realize how it's going to help them develop that application for their needs. But in order to make that work, obviously, there's some change management that has to happen with an organization. The idea of training people, like we mentioned in Amazon, in a group in a warehouse floor has to change. You need to put them in a room where they can work on VR specifically, give them analytics and data that comes out of that application so they can give focused feedback to those learners from the VR application they just went through, and then help drive that change. And if that all works, then the adoption will happen afterwards. But if someone gets in a VR headset and they can't grab an object because they didn't set their play space correctly, it's never going to go any further than that.
Right. Makes sense. That's great. Thank you. Shawn, so you often deploy content into scenarios where they can be some pretty dangerous or high-risk environments. Any type of data or analytics that you guys lean on in kind of sharing how your contents can be the next path for their training?
Yeah, I think certainly that we talk about the standard, empirical data that's out there, the 4 times learning and retention and so on. We really try to focus on our own case studies and take those and we talk about focusing on the verticals that we're in, being able to leverage that and then talk about that experience. And I think one of the most important elements to successful adoption and deployment is you have to have a great client success team. They have to understand the operations of the business they're dealing with, really understand the mechanics of it. It's just not about building VR, AR, XR, any R. It's about really understanding the client first and foremost. What are they looking to achieve? Have your client success team involved right throughout that process, so when the deployment happens in the field, they're working beside the client. They can actually address the issues in advance of the respondents in the field, and that's where the hands-on, the understanding, the knowledge is. And we obviously de-risk a lot of training because we're putting it in VR as opposed to being in the field. But that client success part of the equation is huge.
That's great. Matt, what about you? So as far as the measurable impacts of going from controllers to hand tracking, right? Besides just the we're tired of charging controllers, putting colored stickers on controllers to figure out which one goes with which headset. What are you sharing with your end users?
Yeah, the one that's a go-to for us is if you want someone to retain information that you're training them, you need to reduce anxiety, whether it's social anxiety or other. And I guarantee you that for the vast majority of people being trained from all 3 of these companies, if you put a controller in their hand and you say, hit the X button, their brain's gonna just, which controller is the X button on? And so you completely remove that anxiety. You allow someone to just focus on the content itself. You don't need to create any additional. People are already putting things on their heads. For a lot of people, that's already like a little bit of a social awareness challenge. And so we help reduce that anxiety that helps people retain information. And then there's also studies that show, just visualizing your hands in a way that you should be holding that tool helps retain that information so that when you go out there. And so we focus on, having really accurate interactions that you visually see your hand as it should be on that, device that you're supposed to be using.
That's great. So I'd be obviously remiss if I don't bring PICO into the conversation at some point here, right? So Juan, if you don't mind, I want to kind of pivot to the next question and talk about maybe some of the latest collaborations and projects we've worked on together. Is there anything you kind of find interesting or want to share?
Yeah, so at CyberDyme, what we're showcasing in the PICO booth is VR experience controlled from a tablet in real time. So think of it as PowerPoint and VR, where you don't right now give agency to the person that's learning, you give it to the instructor, right? So that's game changing in terms of giving demos. How many of you had a hard time with the demo today? All right, there's a lot of friction here. And so working with PICO and their open system and hardware, we're able to bring these use cases to customers like a Celebrity, like a Marriott, like a Discover Puerto Rico, and where we're easily able to integrate through our cloud-based system and application and guide, through a tour, in this example, Discover Puerto Rico, and really understand the benefits to event planners and to wedding coordinators. And so not only the device, but the resources that are available to us. So we had technical questions about different drivers within the headset. So partners that we wanted to link up with, being here in booth. So that really helped accelerate the speed of adoption. And as a startup, speed is your only advantage. And so working with the partner that is aligned with speed has really helped us.
That's great. Thank you. Shawn, what about you? I know we've been working on a few interesting projects and collaborations together. Anything interesting to point out?
I think one of the biggest strengths of PICO beyond like a 4E product and so on being just a great performing product in the field is the ecosystem that you've set up. So, I'm sitting in this panel and we're going to be collaborating amongst each other about how we do business together because we're all different aspects and different verticals. But being able to work and collaborate with partners through PICO, driving that or making that open, has just accelerated our ability set to look at our future roadmap on the development side and bring some pretty exciting products to market. So that ecosystem is everything.
Appreciate that. Scott, anything to point?
Yeah, if there's any developers in the room, as a developer, in order to help that adoption rate we talked about, we have to make the user experience easy for our learners, and PICO has opened up APIs that give you access to everything on the headset. It is the easiest headset to develop for, so I can get into the boundary system, I can adjust volume, I can handle the Wi-Fi connectivity directly from my application and take it out of the hands of the learner to make it easy for them to just get in and start learning. And if there's anything that you need to do to access from a hardware standpoint, they're very open at working with you. Their team is very responsive. So I can't give you more kudos, but it's been a great partnership, and just being able to have that access to make things easier for our learners and our partners is huge.
That's great. Scott, what's your Venmo again? I'm sorry. No. So Matt, what about you? So I mean, we work on a lot of interesting projects together across a lot of different industries. What anything kind of you want to point out on your side?
Yeah, first off, one of our more interesting recent deployments is in the healthcare space, where we're doing nursing training with a company called Helios out of Germany. And again, I'll just say that PICO delivers a great headset at a great price point, totally open to partners. We work with the MDM providers in this space and manage an arbor so that you can actually integrate our hand tracking into their system so that you turn on the headset, no need for controllers. Like, it's a beautiful thing that you've done with your ecosystem. We all work well together, and it's been awesome to just participate in that. And each and every one of these folks, like, we end up working with, and it's just awesome. And it's, as we look at, us, we deliver hand tracking, and the new PICO device has some hand tracking, but you've had a very customer focus, which is certain people have more demanding use cases in the enterprise, and you've been a great partner putting us out in front of them because you have a great customer focus. And so it's been awesome to work with PICO.
Appreciate that. I mean, really, guys, going into, I hesitate to call it going into battle every day, but going out into the field and going after a variety of verticals and use cases and opportunities with partners, it's just fun. And if you're not having fun with what you're doing, then you kind of have to reassess your whole strategy. It's a lot more fun going into meetings and presentations and events and opportunities with these guys and these ladies and everyone who we work with, from developers, from MDMs to distributors and resellers, than just assuming we know how to do everything perfectly ourselves and just leave it to us, we'll handle it. That's not at all how we operate. So if you come by our booth, you'll see that strategy. If you go by some other booths, you'll see the opposite. So you kind of get what I'm saying there. So let's talk about just kind of the future of innovation in this space, right? We've got a lot of interesting, things ahead in mixed reality, augmented reality, expansion of VR training, hand tracking, eye tracking, all those kinds of things. So what do you guys think those impacts might have in what you're doing today? Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, obviously a lot of what we do is using VR and XR for what it's supposed to be used for, and that is getting us closer to the hands-on training that people would do on the job. It should never be used as a supplement to e-learning or a complete changeover. Like, if it's a point and click in VR, I get mad at my developers. I'm like, no, take that out right now. Grab it, do something with it. So having the hand tracking, becoming more stable, being able to do occlusion with the hands. There's a lot of things that is going to open up the possibility for, but what I'm looking forward to as well is the improvement in haptic feedback. Some way to understand that what I'm touching feels like I'm touching it, understanding why and how what I'm doing from full body tracking within an application is going to be huge if we can get that to work, because helping people understand what they're doing in the VR space is just as important as having them understand what they're supposed to learn in the VR space. So those things are going to really improve the user experience.
That's a good way to put it. Juan, what about you, as far as what's coming ahead in mixed reality, kind of the innovations ahead?
Well, I'm excited about form factor improving, right? I think that's a barrier, putting it on your head. So, VR glasses eventually coming out. Expansion of data. So AI is driven on a boatload of data, right? It's been around forever, didn't have enough data. So not only from an eye tracking, but multi-biometric, understanding of the user experience, cross-pollinating with facial expressions. In the training, what if I knew from a facial expression where I look, when I look, how long I look, how does that equate to the effectiveness of training, right? What can I learn from that data? What are those impactful analytics that I can extract from that to improve my training, because this platform is the most immersive and data-driven 100x over e-learning or in classroom. In classroom and e-learning, I don't even know if you're looking at the videos. I don't even know if you're looking at me as an instructor. So the ability from, from facial to eye to different biometric data that we can put into an algorithm and spit out some very impactful analytics, I'm really excited about that.
That's great. So I think we might be coming up on time.
Good to get questions from the audience.
Yeah, sure thing.
Any questions?
Don't all jump at once, please. No? We answered everything? Yeah, please.
There is one on the app as well,
Perfect.
so let me just read this one. Is pass-through AR on a PICO devices expected to become a critical tool for effective workforce training across various industries?
That's a great question. So the PICO 4E, which is on the market today, we do have a publicly available AR SDK, an MR SDK essentially. That is actually available. So if anyone wants to get the headset, try out the pass-through technology, the PICO 4E is not designed to be a mixed reality headset, but it will actually give you a look into kind of what our thought process is and where we may be going in the future with our technology. So I would say you can jump in, you can even come to our booth. I think it's booth 29, right, team? 29? Yeah, so come by booth 29. It's the busiest and most fun booth there. You won't miss it. And you can give that a whirl. So yeah, anything else? Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Okay, I know everyone's hungry, so I believe dinner is served. Be back for 2